Welcome to Cafe Stories, where every tale is a mystery waiting to unfold. A world of secrets, intrigue, and unforgettable adventures. Grab your coffee, stay curious, and lose yourself in the thrill of the unknown. Tonight, we begin Arsène, Lupin and the Forgotten Pharaoh's Curse. Chapter 1. The Heist and the Curse. Under Paris's moonlit veil, the Louvre stood as a silent guardian of secrets. Inside its hallowed halls, Arsène Lupin moved with effortless grace, a master thief whose brilliance and charm were legendary. Tonight, he pursued a prize unlike any other, the amulet of Anubis, rumored to carry an ancient curse. Every step was measured, every breath a calculated risk. The cool night air mingled with the scent of polished marble and mystery. As Lupin's deft hands manipulated the security system, a whisper of foreboding stirred within him, hinting at hidden dangers. Outside, shadows lengthened along cobbled streets, concealing an unseen observer with equally dark intentions. With the artifact in his grasp, a surge of tension crackled through the air, promising that this daring act would awaken forces long dormant. The thrill of the heist intertwined with the weight of an ominous curse, setting the stage for a perilous journey, inevitably unforeseen. In the subdued twilight of Paris, where history whispered from every stone and shadow, Arsène Lupin moved with the precision of a seasoned dancer. The city itself was a living tapestry of intrigue, a blend of old-world elegance and modern enigma. Tonight, beneath the lingering glow of gaslit streets and the distant hum of urban life, Lupin's silhouette merged with the darkness as he approached his latest, most daring target. His mind was a labyrinth of strategy and instinct, honed by years of skirting both the law and fate. Here, in the heart of the City of Lights, every step he took was a silent testament to his unparalleled skill as a master thief. Lupin's goal was singular and perilous: to secure the fabled amulet of
Anubis, a relic whose mystique was matched only by the legend of its curse.
It was said that the amulet held the power to unlock secrets buried deep within the annals of time, secrets that some believed could upset the balance between the natural and the supernatural. For Lupin, this was not merely another heist. It was a quest that defied conventional greed. His motivations were as layered as the history that surrounded him, driven by an insatiable curiosity and a desire to preserve the sanctity of artifacts too dangerous to be wielded by the unworthy. As the master thief approached the venerable museum, the weight of his objective mingled with the cool Parisian night. The air was filled with the mingled aromas of damp stone and aged parchment, a reminder that every relic had a story, every artifact a soul. This evening, those souls would whisper their secrets to him, urging him forward into the labyrinth of fate and consequence. Within the depths of this intricate plan, subtle presences began to take shape. While Lupin's focus was unwavering, hints of other forces at play could be felt in the unseen corners of his world. There were those who admired his brilliance, a small cadre of allies whose loyalty was forged not in blood, but in shared ideals. A retired professor with a passion for ancient lore had once mentored him, imparting wisdom about the delicate balance between myth and reality. A discreet confidant in the intelligence services, though bound by duty, had silently aided his endeavors, providing critical insights into the undercurrents of Paris's criminal tapestry. Yet, lurking in the periphery was the spectre of betrayal, a shadowy figure whose allegiance was as fluid as the secrets that permeated the night. The inciting spark of tonight's venture lay in a single, cryptic message delivered by an anonymous courier, a note that bore an ominous seal and hinted at the presence of forces determined to claim the amulet for purposes unknown. The message was brief, yet its implications resonated like a distant drumbeat of impending conflict. It spoke of hidden enemies and a curse that might not be confined merely to the artifact, but could extend its malignant influence over those who dared to disturb its rest. In this intricate web of ambition, danger, and historical legacy, the rules of the world were as clear as they were unyielding. Trust was a currency in short supply, and every alliance was tempered by the knowledge that loyalties could be easily shattered. The modern underbelly of Paris operated on codes as old as time, codes that dictated honor among thieves and retribution for betrayal. Here, in a city where every alley held echoes of past glories and tragedies, Lupin was not just a thief. He was a guardian of forgotten truths, a solitary figure caught between the allure of forbidden knowledge and the peril it inevitably invited. Thus, as Arsène Lupin stepped into the embrace of the night, the stage was set for a dangerous game, a game where every secret uncovered carried a price, and where the boundaries between hero and outlaw blurred beneath the unforgiving light
of destiny. As the night deepened over Paris, the intricate tapestry of fate began to unravel further, revealing layers of intrigue hidden beneath the city's opulent facade. Arsène Lupin, ever the meticulous architect of his own destiny, now
found himself shadowed by forces both known and obscure. The anonymous note he had received earlier lingered in his mind like an unwelcome omen, a subtle yet insistent reminder that his actions had stirred dormant powers and rival ambitions. In the labyrinthine corridors of Paris's underworld, alliances were forged in whispers and exchanged glances. Among those who aligned themselves with Lupin was a discreet confidant from the intelligence community. This enigmatic figure, whose face remained shrouded in perpetual twilight, possessed an uncanny ability to trace the faintest hint of conspiracy. Their presence was felt more than seen, a silent guardian who provided crucial insights into the convoluted networks of crime and power that governed the city. Alongside this unseen ally, an erudite mentor from Lupin's earlier days had re-emerged from the mists of time. A retired professor renowned for his deep knowledge of ancient civilizations, he had once instilled in Lupin a reverence for relics steeped in legend. His subtle interventions and cryptic warnings now served as both guide and cautionary voice in the thief's otherwise solitary journey. Yet as Lupin's inner circle began to take shape, so too did the contours of opposition. A rival, known only as the Shadow, had long operated at the fringes of Parisian society. This elusive adversary was as enigmatic as the curse that now threatened to resurface. With motives hidden behind layers of personal vendetta and ambition, the Shadow moved with an almost preternatural ability to vanish into darkness. Their connection to the cursed amulet was a matter of unsettling rumor, a connection that hinted at a broader conspiracy and a hunger for power that transcended the mundane. While Lupin's allies offered fragments of guidance and subtle warnings, the presence of the Shadow was a constant, disquieting reminder that every step taken in this dangerous game might be leading to an unforeseen betrayal. The turning point came when a series of meticulously orchestrated events converged to force Lupin's hand. Late that evening, while studying the intricate hieroglyphics that adorned the stolen amulet in the solitude of a secluded safe house, a cascade of revelations unfolded. The cryptic message inscribed within the relic hinted at a dark ritual, a forbidden ceremony that promised not only to unleash the dormant curse, but also to confer unspeakable power upon its wielder. The revelation struck Lupin with the force of a tempest. It was a call to arms that left him with little choice but to abandon caution and act. The delicate balance between preservation and destruction now teetered on the edge of a razor blade, and every decision he made from this moment forward would echo through the corridors of history. As the layers of mystery thickened, the rule of this shadowy realm crystallized with uncompromising clarity. Trust was a commodity scarce and fleeting, while betrayal lurked behind every alliance. The very foundations of Paris, a city steeped in both grandeur and decay, became a silent witness to this unfolding drama. The ancient stones of its venerable institutions seemed to murmur secrets of long-forgotten pacts and treacherous ambitions. Every whispered rumor, every fleeting shadow in the night, bore testimony to the fact that Lupin was no longer the sole orchestrator of his destiny. Other forces, ruthless, relentless, and driven by their own cryptic designs, had now entered the stage. Thus, as the dark hour deepened and the ethereal light of dawn remained distant, Arsène Lupin's journey took on a new urgency. The relic pulsed with an ominous energy, binding him inexorably to a fate that was as unpredictable as it was inevitable. In that moment, the stage was set for a collision of ancient curses, modern ambitions, and the timeless battle between light and shadow, a battle in which every secret unearthed would come at an immeasurable cost. As the pale glow of midnight yielded to the inky depths of the early hours, the pulse of Paris began to quicken with an unseen urgency. Arsène Lupin, having long mastered the art of eluding capture, now sensed that the stakes of his latest endeavor had escalated far beyond a mere heist. The ancient amulet he had purloined from the Louvre now resonated with a mysterious, almost sentient energy, a silent warning that its secrets were not meant to be trifled with. In the solitude of his secluded safe house, surrounded by relics and the faint aroma of aged paper and cold stone, Lupin immersed himself in the cryptic symbols etched on the artifact's surface. Each hieroglyph seemed to pulse with an otherworldly
rhythm, a heartbeat of a long-dead civilization that refused to be silenced.
As he pored over these enigmatic inscriptions, an unsettling realization dawned upon him. The amulet was not merely a relic of the past, but a key that could unlock a forbidden ritual poised to disturb the delicate balance between the mortal realm and forces beyond. This revelation served as the catalyst that propelled him into a maelstrom of ancient conspiracies and modern deceptions. Chapter 2. Whispers of the Past. Across the city, the clandestine networks of Paris stirred in response to this latent power. The unseen hand of fate began to orchestrate a convergence of diverse and dubious characters. Among them was the elusive rival known only as the Shadow, a figure whose very presence evoked an unshakable chill. This enigmatic adversary, cloaked in mystery and driven by motives that remained as obscured as the legends of the cursed amulet itself, was gathering allies and resources in anticipation of an inevitable confrontation. The Shadow's influence extended through whispered rumors in dimly lit back alleys and the hushed corridors of secret societies, each murmur adding to the growing tapestry of treachery that now enshrouded Lupin's world. Within the intricate web of loyalties and hidden alliances, subtle betrayals began to emerge. A trusted confidant from the intelligence community, whose assistance had been instrumental in Lupin's previous escapades, now appeared to harbor doubts and shifting allegiances. This individual's careful interventions, once a source of steadfast support, were now tinged with caution and a hint of personal agenda, a reminder that in this realm, trust was as elusive as the shadows themselves. Meanwhile, the ancient history of Paris itself bore silent witness to the unfolding drama. The city's storied past, filled with revolutions, exiles, and whispered legends of occult pacts, formed the backdrop against which the present struggle was set. Every stone of its venerable monuments, every winding street lined with secrets, seemed to echo the unresolved conflicts of bygone eras. It was as if the city had always been destined to play host to such a collision between the tangible and the supernatural. The inciting incident, which had ignited this perilous journey, now took on an even darker hue. A series of inexplicable occurrences, a sudden malfunction of security systems, fleeting glimpses of shadowy figures in deserted corridors, and the inexplicable shifting of the amulet's inscriptions served as ominous preludes to the chaos that lay ahead. These phenomena were not random acts of misfortune, they were deliberate signals, portents of an impending ritual designed to awaken forces long confined to myth. In this crucible of tension and uncertainty, Arsène Lupin stood on the threshold of an unknown destiny. His every instinct urged him to delve deeper into the mysteries of the amulet, even as a sense of foreboding grew stronger with each passing moment. The path ahead was fraught with hidden dangers, where alliances could crumble with a single misstep, and where the line between friend and foe was perpetually blurred. It was here, in the silent interstice between night and dawn, that the first true battle for control over the amulet's ancient power would be waged, a battle that promised to reshape the boundaries of both the seen and the unseen. As the first pale hues of dawn began to edge the horizon, Paris awoke with a sense of uneasy anticipation. The events of the preceding hours had left the city cloaked in a veil of mystery and latent peril, a perfect backdrop for the convergence of ancient curses and modern ambition. Arsène Lupin, his mind still reeling from the revelations of the cursed amulet, now found himself standing at the crossroads of destiny and doom. In the silent stillness of his safe house, heavy with the scent of old parchment and the lingering Chill of midnight, Lupin contemplated the full extent of the revelations that had unraveled before him. The amulet's inscriptions, once cryptic, now pulsated with an unmistakable energy, a call to an ancient rite that threatened to upset the delicate balance between mortal realms and forbidden forces. Each symbol, each etched line, seemed to whisper secrets of a time when gods and men walked closer to one another, hinting at powers that could both create and destroy. The air around him vibrated with the echoes of unseen presences. In the labyrinth of alliances and treachery, Lupin was painfully aware that he was not alone. The ominous figure known as the Shadow, whose elusive influence had been building like a dark storm at the city's edge, was moving to consolidate power. This enigmatic adversary's motives remained shrouded in obscurity, yet their impact was tangible, a spectral force gathering strength to challenge everything Lupin held dear. Amid these swirling uncertainties, subtle signs of betrayal had begun to surface within his inner circle. The trusted confidant from the intelligence network, whose prior contributions had been indispensable, now seemed to harbor doubts and secret reservations. The betrayal was not overt, but in the quiet moments of introspection, Lupin sensed that loyalties were shifting like sand under the weight of destiny. This realization intensified his internal conflict. The quest to secure the amulet was no longer merely a battle against external enemies, but also an internal struggle to discern truth from deception among those closest to him. Outside the relative sanctuary of his hideout, Paris itself bore witness to the encroaching chaos. The city's ancient streets, lined with monuments that had silently observed centuries of intrigue and revolution, now pulsed with a renewed sense of foreboding. The interplay of light and shadow along the cobblestones mirrored the dual nature of human ambition and the timeless allure of forbidden knowledge. Every passing moment seemed charged with the promise of a dramatic revelation, a final confrontation between the old world and the new. As the ominous energy of the amulet reached a crescendo, a series of deliberate and inexplicable events unfolded. Security systems in key landmarks flickered erratically, as if manipulated by an unseen hand. Faint traces of otherworldly light danced along the ancient walls of Paris's historic quarters, and the wind carried with it murmurs that spoke of ancient rituals and cosmic retribution. It was as if the relic itself was awakening, stirring the remnants of a long-dormant curse that had lain in wait for centuries. In this charged atmosphere, the stage was irrevocably set for the impending collision of fate and free will. Lupin, his resolve steeled by the enormity of the challenge, knew that every step from this point onward would carry irreversible consequences. The artifact was not just a symbol of power, it was a beacon that had already attracted both allies and enemies into a perilous dance of light and shadow. The fragile alliances, the uncertain loyalties, and the unseen dangers all converged into one defining moment. Thus, as the first rays of dawn illuminated a city steeped in secrets, Arsène Lupin prepared himself for the trials that lay ahead. In that decisive hour, the ancient curse, modern ambition, and the spectre of betrayal merged to forge a destiny that was as unpredictable as it was inexorable, a destiny that promised to change the very fabric of his existence, and perhaps that of all Paris. In the heart of a rain-slicked Paris night, where the reflections of neon and ancient street lamps merged on cobblestones steeped in secrets, Arsène Lupin found himself thrust deeper into a maelstrom of escalating danger. The relic he had once admired for its mystique now pulsed with an ominous energy, a silent drumbeat heralding the approach of peril. Every step he took through the labyrinthine backstreets of the city was imbued with a sense of urgency, as if the very walls whispered warnings of impending doom. The night air, heavy with the scent of wet stone and the metallic tang of distant conflict, carried with it the subtle yet unmistakable echo of betrayal. In the dim glow of a secluded courtyard, Lupin's thoughts churned with the weight of his choices. His mission, originally conceived as a solitary pursuit of the forbidden amulet, had morphed into a far more intricate and treacherous game. Unseen forces, both external adversaries and shadows from within his own circle, now threatened to tip the delicate balance between success and ruin. The first hints of this expanding conflict emerged in the form of a meticulously orchestrated trap. A series of coded signals discovered on a seemingly innocuous scrap of paper tucked inside the amulet's ornate case pointed to the presence of a rival faction. This enemy, operating in the interstices of the criminal underworld, and, shrouded in secrecy, had tightened its grip on the city's pulse. The realization sent ripples through Lupin's mind, forcing him to confront not only the external danger of an encroaching nemesis, but also the internal turmoil of self-doubt. The question loomed: was he, in his quest for forbidden knowledge, too blinded by ambition to see the betrayals that lay in wait? In the silent moments between heartbeats, memories of past alliances and the weight of shattered trust surfaced like ghostly apparitions. Lupin recalled the enigmatic figure from the intelligence network, a once reliable confidant whose loyalty had now grown ambiguous. The spectre of treachery, whether from old friends or cunning foes, hung over him like a dark cloud, intensifying the stakes of every decision he was about to make. Each clue uncovered only deepened the mystery, intertwining the fate of the amulet with a far more sinister plot than he had ever anticipated. As the rain began to fall in heavy, relentless sheets, washing the city's sins into the depths of ancient gutters, Lupin's determination crystallized. Every misstep now held the potential to unleash consequences that would resonate through the fragile underbelly of Paris. The coded message, the subtle shift in his confidant's demeanor, and the ever-present menace of a rival force converged to create a maelstrom of tension. In that rain-drenched hour, the labyrinth of deception and danger grew ever more convoluted, setting the stage for a confrontation that would challenge every facet of Lupin's ingenuity, resolve, and very identity. Chapter 3. The Catacomb, Gambitin. The aftermath of that fateful, rain-soaked hour, the city's undercurrent of secrets grew ever more intricate. Arsène Lupin found himself navigating not only the physical labyrinth of Paris's back alleys, but also the metaphorical maze of treachery and deception. Each step was now measured against the weight of new clues that beckoned him deeper into a shadowy conspiracy. An overlooked scrap of parchment, discovered amid the remnants of the earlier trap, carried a cryptic inscription, one that hinted at a centuries-old ritual and the intermingling of mortal ambitions with forces that defied explanation. This hidden message, veiled in archaic symbols and half-forgotten lore, served as a stark reminder that the relic he sought was merely one piece in a much larger, perilous puzzle. In these somber moments of solitary reflection, Lupin's mind replayed the faces of those whose loyalties were now in question. The once steady presence of his confidant from the intelligence network had grown increasingly ambiguous, their actions seemingly laced with double meaning. It was as if each careful gesture was meant to conceal an ulterior motive, a silent testimony to the fickleness of trust in a world where every alliance came at a cost. The betrayal that might be lurking behind every friendly smile was an ever-present spectre, and Lupin's inner turmoil deepened with each new revelation. The uncertainty gnawed at him, forcing him to question whether every carefully laid plan was merely a prelude to a deeper, orchestrated deception. The atmosphere around him seemed to thicken with the intensity of suppressed revelations. In quiet, moments beneath the shroud of Parisian night, the interplay between light and darkness on ancient walls appeared to narrate stories of forgotten pacts and veiled vendettas. Each shadow cast by the flickering streetlights hinted at the possibility that a trusted ally might be concealing a far more sinister role than had ever been imagined. Meanwhile, the enigmatic rival known only as the Shadow continued to exert an unseen influence. Whispers on the wind carried subtle clues of this adversary's long-term designs, suggesting that the rival's ambitions were inextricably linked to the cursed amulet, and that their reach extended far beyond the immediate realm of crime. As the tension in the air mounted, the city itself became a living chronicle of impending fate. Every rain-dropped cobblestone, every echo in an abandoned courtyard resonated with the ancient rhythms of history and the foreboding promise of chaos. The puzzle pieces were slowly aligning, coded signals, hidden inscriptions, and the mercurial behavior of those once trusted. Each element was a strand in a vast, interconnected web, drawing Lupin inexorably toward a climax that would test not only his wits, but the very core of his resolve. In this charged and uncertain atmosphere, the stakes escalated beyond mere survival. Every misstep was now a potential catalyst for disaster, and every alliance, however tentative, carried the risk of irreversible betrayal. With the pieces of the mystery shifting like the sands of time, Arsène Lupin braced himself for the next phase, a confrontation where the interplay of ancient curses, modern deceit, and personal ambition would reach a critical, explosive juncture. As the tension in the city grew almost palpable, Arsène Lupin's inner world was equally in upheaval. In the quiet solitude of a long-forgotten archival chamber, tucked away beneath Paris's ancient quarters, Lupin pored over a collection of dusty manuscripts and clandestine documents. These relics of the past, imbued with cryptic symbols and shadowed meanings, revealed fragments of a narrative that was as old as time itself. Each faded inscription and carefully scribed note hinted at an alliance once forged between disparate factions, a pact that, if understood, could unravel the true purpose of the cursed amulet. In the midst of these revelations, a profound twist began to take shape. One document, more worn than the rest, suggested that the enigmatic rival known as the Shadow was not an entirely new adversary, but rather a figure deeply intertwined with Lupin's own history. The manuscript alluded to a secret meeting decades past, where an unforeseen betrayal had sown the seeds of enmity between two souls whose destinies were inextricably linked. This long-buried connection sent shockwaves through Lupin's carefully constructed plans as it challenged his long-held belief that he operated alone against an external threat. Instead, it revealed that the true enemy might have been lurking within the corridors of his past all along. As the weight of this discovery settled upon him, Lupin's mind oscillated between determination and despair. The realization that the line dividing friend from foe was blurred by history intensified his internal conflict. Every previously trusted ally now assumed an ambiguous hue, and every whispered rumor echoed with the possibility of treachery. The specter of betrayal was no longer a distant threat. It was now embedded in the very fabric of his journey. Within this charged atmosphere, subtle alliances began to crystallize. A once disputed connection with a reclusive academic, a scholar whose deep insights into ancient rites had earned both admiration and suspicion, transformed into a vital alliance. This mentor-like figure, whose wisdom was as formidable as the secrets contained within the manuscripts, now offered a guiding light amidst the encroaching darkness. The academic's knowledge of obscure rituals and lost histories served as both a beacon and a warning. Understanding the amulet's true nature demanded more than mere cunning. It required an unyielding confrontation with one's own past. As the rain outside gave way to an oppressive silence, every element in Lupin's world converged into an explosive promise of reckoning. The revelation of his intertwined fate with the Shadow and the unmasking of alliances built on both loyalty and deception heightened the stakes immeasurably. Each new piece of evidence, each fragment of a long-forgotten memory, added to the mounting pressure that every decision from this point forward would carry irreversible consequences. In that dimly lit chamber, amidst relics of a time when secret ruled and loyalties were carved in stone, Arsène Lupin realized that his quest had evolved from a solitary pursuit into a battle against the very ghosts of his past. The path ahead was riddled with perilous uncertainties, a crucible where every trust might be betrayed and every alliance, once thought steadfast, could crumble under the weight of history. As dawn threatened to break over a Paris still haunted by the previous night's revelations, Arsène Lupin found himself teetering on the brink of an irreversible decision. The corridors of his mind, long accustomed to the thrill of high-stakes pursuits, now reverberated with the crushing weight of betrayal and unforeseen alliances. The evidence he had painstakingly gathered, a mosaic of coded messages, ancient
manuscripts, and the lingering presence of his enigmatic rival formed a disquieting portrait of a conspiracy far more sinister than he had ever imagined. The dark tapestry of his past, interwoven with secrets and half-truths, now unfurled with
painful clarity. In the dim light of his secluded sanctuary, the stolen relic pulsed like a living heart, each beat echoing the potential devastation that the cursed amulet could unleash. Lupin's inner turmoil reached its apex as he realized that every trusted ally was a double-edged sword. The academic mentor, whose wisdom had once been a guiding beacon, now cast long, ambiguous shadows of doubt. The once reliable informant from the intelligence community, with their clandestine hints and subtle maneuvers, now threatened to undermine everything he had fought for. Every detail of the unfolding mystery carried with it a personal toll. The shikta intertwining of fate between Lupin and his elusive adversary, the Shadow, had revealed scars from an ancient rivalry, a rivalry that transcended the mere acquisition of treasure and delved into the very essence of identity and legacy. In that quiet moment of introspection, the burden of his own ambition pressed down on him like a physical weight. His quest for forbidden knowledge, once a thrilling adventure, now risked becoming the instrument of his own undoing. Outside, Paris stirred with a restless energy, as if the city itself sensed the imminent clash of destinies. The relentless rain had ceased, replaced by a heavy, suffocating stillness that cloaked the urban landscape. Every deserted street, every silent monument seemed to bear witness to the looming confrontation, an inevitable collision between forces, as ancient as the pharaohs, and as modern as the criminal underbelly that exploited their secrets. In this charged atmosphere, the stakes were starkly clear. A single misstep could unleash chaos, not only imperiling Lupin's life, but also dooming the fragile balance between the seen and the unseen. The intricate web of deceit that had ensnared him now demanded a reckoning. Each clue, each betrayal, and every fractured alliance coalesced into a singular, inescapable truth. The cursed amulet was not merely an object of desire, but a harbinger
of ruin that could devour all who dared to wield it. With a resolve hardened by the fires of betrayal and the spectre of inevitable loss, Lupin steeled himself for the next phase of this perilous journey.
In the silence of that fateful morning, as the first tentative rays of light crept over the horizon, he recognized that his every decision from that moment onward carried monumental consequences. The path ahead was shrouded in uncertainty and treachery, yet he could no longer retreat. The confrontation with the forces that sought to harness the amulet's power was imminent, a battle where the boundaries between friend and foe, truth and deception, would be irrevocably redrawn. As the city's dark pulse quickened in the early hours, a palpable tension coiled around Paris like a living entity. Arsène Lupin, burdened by the twin weights of his ambition and creeping distrust, felt the inevitability of conflict closing in. Every shadow seemed to hide another adversary, every distant sound a precursor to calamity. The relentless interplay between destiny and deception drove him to re-examine the fragile network of allies and enemies that now defined his existence. A foreboding atmosphere had settled over the clandestine pathways of the underworld, where secrets were traded like currency and trust was an artifact of the past. In this murky realm, the influence of the shadow grew ever more insidious. The rivals' unseen machinations reached deep into the fabric of the criminal underbelly, sowing discord among those who once appeared steadfast. The subtle unraveling of loyalties left Lupin with an acute awareness that every decision he made was part of an elaborate tapestry of subterfuge, a tapestry woven with the threads of betrayal and half-truths. Amid this heightened state of peril, a critical revelation emerged from the labyrinth of clues left behind in the wake of his previous encounters. Hidden within an innocuous ledger discovered in an abandoned safe house was evidence that implicated not only external enemies, but also members of his inner circle. The realization was a bitter tonic, intensifying the internal strife that had long simmered beneath his confident exterior. Each newly deciphered symbol from the cursed amulet now seemed to carry a double meaning, a warning not only of ancient curses but also of the personal cost of trusting those closest to him. In the solitude of his temporary refuge, where time itself appeared suspended between ticking seconds and endless nights, Lupin contemplated the magnitude of the impending showdown. The relic's mysterious power pulsed steadily, echoing the rhythm of a fate that had been set in motion long before he had ever laid eyes on it. Every heartbeat was a reminder of the high stakes that now defined his path, the potential to ignite a chain reaction that could obliterate the precarious equilibrium between the mortal realm and the forces lurking beyond. The encroaching threat was not confined to abstract symbols or hidden messages. It manifested in tangible, relentless danger. Every calculated move by Lupin was shadowed by a network of conspiracies, each designed to undermine his progress and expose his vulnerabilities. The maze of alliances and deceptions was tightening, constricting his options until the line between survival and defeat blurred into insignificance. With every step deeper into this perilous domain, the risk of irreversible loss surged, and the question of whether he could ever extricate himself from this morass of ancient curses and modern treachery grew ever more desperate. In that dim, uncertain hour, Arsène Lupin faced the stark reality that his journey was no longer a solitary quest for forbidden knowledge. It had become an intricate battle against forces that would stop at nothing to manipulate destiny, where every miscalculation could spark a conflagration that consumed not only his dreams, but the very soul of Paris itself. The faint glow of dawn broke over the Seine, casting a golden sheen on its waters. Yet, for Arsène Lupin, the light brought no clarity, only the ominous realization that time was slipping through his fingers. The hunt for answers had intensified, and the clues, though tantalizing, were as perilous as they were illuminating. His latest discovery, a forgotten map etched into the underside of the ancient amulet, presented a maddening paradox. It confirmed the existence of the Pharaoh's tomb, buried beneath layers of history and myth, but it also carried a warning in cryptic hieroglyphs: "To seek me is to awaken death." Each symbol burned into his mind, raising the stakes and further complicating his purpose. Was he hunting treasure, power, or a secret best left buried? As he studied the map, an unshakable sense of foreboding settled over him. The layout corresponded to a section of Paris long thought forgotten, a network of tunnels and catacombs predating the modern city. Yet this revelation came with a troubling twist. The Shadow, his ever-looming rival, had anticipated his every move, leaving traps and false leads. Lupin's frustration mounted as the intricate dance of deception forced him to question not just his enemies' methods, but their motives. Why was the Shadow so intent on controlling the relic? Was it greed, or was there something even darker at play? The growing tension among his allies was no less pressing. The once unshakable camaraderie of his inner circle now teetered on a fragile edge. His loyal confidant, Jeanne, had grown distant, her actions veiled in secrecy. Her cryptic behavior fueled doubts. Was she protecting him or betraying him? Meanwhile, Bernard, the tech genius, presented another layer of unpredictability. His unparalleled skills in decoding ancient symbols had proven invaluable, yet his reckless ambition to unlock the amulet's full power was dangerous. Lupin's unease deepened when Bernard revealed a hidden inscription beneath the map, one that spoke of a guardian, a spectral force bound to protect the relic. The curse, it seemed, was not just a legend. Every attempt to decode the amulet's secrets unleashed eerie phenomena, objects shifting on their own, cold gusts of wind in closed rooms, and shadows that moved unnaturally. Skepticism gave way to fear as Bernard's experiments pushed boundaries no mortal should dare approach. The tipping point came during a reconnaissance mission into the catacombs. Lupin, Bernard, and Jeanne ventured deep into the ancient tunnels, navigating treacherous paths illuminated only by flickering lanterns. The air grew colder the farther they descended, heavy with a silence broken only by the distant drip of water. It was here that Lupin found the first tangible proof of the curse, a chamber adorned with intricate carvings depicting a terrible fate for those who disturbed the tomb. Before they could retreat, the trap was sprung. A figure emerged from the shadows, not the Shadow, but a rogue faction working in tandem with his rival. Armed and ruthless, they demanded the amulet in exchange for their lives. Bernard's defiance nearly cost them everything, but Lupin's quick thinking allowed a narrow escape. The encounter left him shaken. It was no longer just a battle of wits. Now bloodshed was inevitable. As they resurfaced into the Parisians' night, Lupin knew he was running out of time and allies. The curse, the rival factions, the fragile loyalties. It was all converging into a single, inescapable confrontation. For the first time, he questioned if the legend of the forgotten pharaohs
Curse was more than myth.
Perhaps, just perhaps, some secrets were never meant to be unearthed. Night had fallen over Paris, its streets bathed in a silvery glow from the full moon. But for Arsène Lupin, the night held no serenity, only the suffocating weight of impending
doom. The web of deception had thickened, and the pieces of the puzzle now painted a sinister picture.
Lupin stood on the edge of discovery and destruction, knowing the stakes had risen beyond personal gain. The amulet's secrets had finally begun to unravel. Bernard's relentless decoding revealed a prophecy hidden within the hieroglyphs. The heir who dares, the price they'll bear, a power untold, a fate of despair. At first glance, it sounded like mere superstition. But Lupin had learned to trust his instincts, and every fibre of his being told him this was no idle warning. The curse was not just a story, it was a reality. Meanwhile, Jean's behaviour became even more troubling. She had disappeared for hours without explanation, returning with vague excuses and an unusual tenseness. Her reluctance to share her thoughts cast a shadow over their partnership. Was she being blackmailed? Had she struck a deal with the shadow? Or worse, was she acting of her own volition? The truth came to light in the most unexpected way. During a heated argument between Lupin and Bernard over the risks of continuing their pursuit, Jeanne interrupted, her voice trembling with guilt. She confessed to making contact with an enigmatic figure who claimed to know the truth about the
amulet. Desperate to protect Lupin from what she believed was a fate worse than death, she had agreed to meet this figure in secret. Furious but unable to ignore the lead, Lupin demanded to know where the meeting would take place.
Jean hesitated but finally revealed the location. A crumbling chateau on the outskirts of Paris, rumoured to have ties to ancient Egyptian occultists. The chateau was a labyrinth of decay, its once grand halls now consumed by shadows and silence. Lupin, Jeanne and Bernard moved cautiously, their lanterns casting eerie shapes on the walls. The tension was palpable, each creak of the floorboards echoing like a scream in the void. In the heart of the chateau, they found him, the enigmatic figure Jean had spoken of. Draped in a dark cloak, his face hidden beneath a hood, he spoke, with an air of authority that sent chills down their spines. He introduced himself as Khaled, a self-proclaimed guardian of the Pharaoh's curse. Khaled's words were both cryptic and unnerving. He claimed the amulet was never meant to be found, let alone deciphered. It was a key, yes, but not to treasure. It was a key to a prison, one that held a force far beyond human comprehension. "You are not unlocking history," he warned. "You are unleashing vengeance." Lupin's skepticism collided with a deep-seated fear. Khaled's knowledge of the amulet and its secrets was undeniable. He described in detail the network of tunnels leading to the Pharaoh's resting place and the rituals needed to suppress the curse. But he also offered a dire ultimatum. Return the amulet to its original hiding place and abandon the quest, or face consequences that would echo through eternity. Before Lupin could decide, the meeting was interrupted. The shadow and his men stormed the chateau, their arrival a cacophony of gunfire and chaos. Khaled disappeared into the darkness, leaving Lupin and his team to fend for themselves. The ensuing confrontation was a blur of near escapes and desperate maneuvers. Lupin's quick thinking allowed them to evade capture, but the amulet fell into the shadow's hands in the chaos. As they regrouped in a safe house, battered and exhausted, Lupin's resolve hardened. The shadow now held the key to an unimaginable power, and Khaled's warnings hung heavy in his mind. Time was running out, and the curse was no longer a distant threat. It was here, alive and waiting. Chapter 4. The necropolis awakens. The city of Paris was no longer the haven Arsène Lupin knew so well. Every shadow seemed to move with intent, every corner whispered with the promise of betrayal. The shadow's acquisition of the amulet had shifted the balance of power, and Lupin knew the clock was ticking. If the prophecy Khaled spoke of was true, Paris, and possibly the world, stood on the brink of disaster. Lupin gathered his fractured team at Bernard's workshop, their safe house now doubling as their war room. The atmosphere was tense, and for good reason. John sat apart from the group, guilt and doubt clouding her expression. Bernard worked feverishly on his maps and notes, attempting to piece together Khaled's cryptic warnings. Lupin himself was unusually quiet, his mind racing through possibilities, betrayals, and countermeasures. The first step was clear. They had to track the shadow. Jian, despite her shaken confidence, provided a critical piece of information. She had noticed a distinctive symbol etched into the shadow's weaponry, one tied to an underground organization operating out of Paris's ancient catacombs. These catacombs, winding and endless, had long been a refuge for smugglers, revolutionaries, and now, it seemed, those obsessed with the cursed amulet. Lupin and his team descended into the catacombs at midnight, the air damp and heavy with decay. Bernard's expertise as a historian proved invaluable. He guided them through hidden passages and marked tunnels, dodging security measures and collapsing pathways. Along the way, they encountered disturbing signs, ancient hieroglyphs carved into the walls, faint traces of ritualistic markings, and the unmistakable scent of burning incense. The Shadow's lair was deep within the catacombs, hidden behind a false wall. Breaking through, Lupin and his team found themselves in a cavernous chamber lit by flickering torches. The amulet sat on an altar at the center of the room, surrounded by artifacts stolen from Egyptian tombs. The Shadow and his
men stood guard, their presence an oppressive force that filled the chamber. Lupin's approach was bold.
Disguised as one of Khalid's disciples, he infiltrated the ceremony, using his charisma and quick wit to sow confusion among the Shadow's ranks. Bernard and Jean waited in the shadows, ready to execute their part of the plan. But the Shadow was not easily fooled. His sharp eyes pierced through Lupin's disguise, and he revealed his trump card, a direct descendant of the pharaoh whose tomb the amulet had been taken from. This descendant, a frail but resolute man, claimed that the amulet was destined to restore the ancient power of his bloodline, a power meant to dominate rather than protect. As tensions escalated, the Shadow activated the amulet using a sequence of symbols etched into the altar. The chamber began to tremble, and a golden light erupted from the amulet, casting ghostly images of the pharaoh's curse across the walls. Lupin realized too late that Khalid's warnings had been genuine. The amulet's power was not meant for any living being. Jeanne, in a moment of clarity, broke free of her guilt and leapt into action. She snatched the amulet from the altar, disrupting the ritual and throwing the chamber into chaos. The Shadow's men surged forward, and a desperate battle ensued. In the melee, Bernard managed to decipher a hidden mechanism in the altar. It was a trap designed by the ancient Egyptians to seal the chamber permanently in the event of misuse. Lupin, understanding the risk, made the difficult decision to activate the mechanism. As the walls began to close in, Lupin's team fought their way out, leaving the Shadow and his men behind. The amulet, now unstable and glowing ominously, was carried by Jeanne, whose determination shone brighter than ever. Emerging from the catacombs, bruised and battered but alive, Lupin and his team knew they had only delayed the inevitable. The amulet's power was still untamed, and the prophecy's darkest hour was yet to come. The city of Cairo had been restless for days, the air thick with unease. Far from the damp catacombs of Paris, Lupin now found himself in a vastly different terrain, one where ancient sands concealed secrets that even time feared to unearth. The amulet, cradled in Jeanne's trembling hands, had begun to emit a low
its ominous glow pulsating in rhythm with her heartbeat. It was as if the artifact itself was alive, aware of the looming confrontation that would decide its fate. Lupin, Jean, and Bernard stood at the entrance of an ancient necropolis.
Hidden deep in the desert, their shadows long under the blood-red sun. Khalid's warnings about the amulet's true purpose echoed in their minds, but their understanding of the curse remained fragmented. What they did know was this: the Shadow had not been vanquished. He had escaped the collapsing catacombs, and now he sought to fully awaken the amulet's power. The necropolis was vast and foreboding, its labyrinthine passages carved into jagged stone. It was a place of death and reverence, where pharaohs had been laid to rest with their treasures and their curses. As Lupin led his team deeper into the tomb, the temperature dropped sharply. The walls were adorned with hieroglyphs that seemed to writhe in the flickering torchlight, their meanings obscured by time, but their menace palpable. Jean's grip on the amulet tightened as they reached a massive chamber at the heart of the necropolis. It was here that the final confrontation would unfold, a room dominated by a towering statue of the forgotten pharaoh. The statue's hollow eyes seemed to watch their every move, and at its feet lay an altar identical to the one in the Parisy catacombs. The realization struck Lupin like a thunderbolt. This was the original altar, the true source of the amulet's power. But they were not alone. The shadow emerged from the darkness, flanked by his loyal followers, their faces concealed. Beneath jackal-shaped masks, his presence was as commanding as ever, his voice dripping with malice as he taunted Lupin and his team. "You've brought the amulet back to where it belongs," he said, his words echoing in the chamber. "And for that, I thank you. But your part in this story ends here." The Shadow's men moved to encircle Lupin's team, and the tension in the room became almost unbearable. Lupin's mind raced as he assessed the situation. They were outnumbered and outmaneuvered, but not outwitted. The necropolis was ancient, and its creators had built it with traps and secret mechanisms to protect its secrets. If anyone could turn the tomb's defenses against the Shadow, it was Lupin. As Bernard subtly examined the hieroglyphs for clues, Jean's internal struggle reached its breaking point. The amulet's power had begun to seep into her thoughts, tempting her with visions of what she could accomplish if she embraced it. She saw herself wielding the power to rewrite history, to correct every injustice she had ever known. But with that vision came a chilling warning: the cost of such power was her humanity. Lupin, noticing Jeanne's hesitation, stepped closer to her. His voice was calm but firm as he reminded her of the dangers they faced, not just from the Shadow, but from the amulet itself. "Jeanne," he said, "we came here to destroy this curse, not to let it consume us." The confrontation escalated as the Shadow revealed his ultimate plan. He had uncovered the Pharaoh's tomb not for its treasures, but to awaken a dormant force that could reshape the world. The amulet was the key to unlocking this power, and the altar was the final piece of the puzzle. With a single gesture, he ordered his followers to attack, and the chamber erupted into chaos. Lupin's team fought desperately, using every ounce of their skill and ingenuity to hold their ground. Bernard activated a series of traps hidden within the walls, causing sections of the chamber to collapse and blocking some of the Shadow's men. Jeanne, despite her inner turmoil, used the amulet's energy to create a blinding light that disoriented their attackers. Amid the chaos, Lupin confronted the Shadow directly. The two adversaries clashed in a battle of wits and wills, their movements as precise as a deadly game of chess. The Shadow taunted Lupin with revelations about his past, suggesting that the Master Thief's own lineage was tied to the Pharaoh's curse. Lupin dismissed the claim as a desperate ploy, but a seed of doubt had been planted. As the dust settled, the Shadow managed to wrest the amulet from Jeanne's grasp. With a triumphant cry, he placed it on the altar and began to chant in an ancient tongue. The chamber trembled violently as the altar's mechanisms sprang to life, and the statue of the Pharaoh seemed to awaken, its hollow eyes now glowing with an otherworldly light. Lupin knew they were out of time. The amulet's power was on the verge of being fully unleashed, and if they didn't act now, there would be no stopping the Shadow's plans. He signaled to Bernard and Jeanne, their unspoken bond as a team stronger than ever. Together, they prepared to make their final move. The necropolis quaked as ancient mechanisms dormant for centuries roared to life. Dust and debris filled the air as the altar emitted a brilliant beam of light that struck the towering statue of the Pharaoh. The glow intensified, and with each pulse, the temperature in the chamber dropped further, the oppressive chill piercing through even the bravest resolve. The Shadow's chant grew louder, his voice resonating with a power that felt almost inhuman. Lupin's instincts screamed at him to act, but he knew any rash move could doom them all. He glanced at Jeanne, who was visibly shaken after losing the amulet. Her eyes betrayed guilt and fear, but also a flicker of determination. Bernard, on the other hand, was frantically deciphering the hieroglyphs, his fingers tracing patterns as if they held the key to salvation. The Shadow turned to face Lupin, his expression triumphant. "You cannot stop what has already begun," he declared, his voice reverberating like the tolling of a bell. "The forgotten Pharaoh's curse will cleanse this world of its impurities, and I will stand as its rightful ruler." Lupin smirked, his irreverence unwavering even in the face
of doom.
"You really need a better pitch," he quipped, buying precious moments for Bernard to continue his work. The room trembled violently as the statue of the Pharaoh began to shift. Its massive arms moved, revealing an ancient staff embedded with gemstones that pulsed with the same eerie light as the amulet. The Shadow's followers fell to their knees in reverence, their chants joining his in a chaotic symphony of worship. Jean, summoning every ounce of courage, stepped forward. "This isn't power, it's destruction," she shouted, her voice cutting through the cacophony. "You're not awakening a king, you're unleashing a curse that will consume everything, including you." The Shadow laughed, his tone dripping with condescension. "You speak of destruction as though it isn't necessary for rebirth. You're too small-minded to grasp the magnitude of what's happening here." As he spoke, Bernard let out a triumphant cry.
"Lupin! The hieroglyphs, they describe a failsafe," he exclaimed, his voice tinged with urgency. "The statue and the altar are linked. If we can disrupt the connection between them, we might be able to stop this." Lupin's mind
raced as he formulated a plan. The failsafe would likely involve immense risk, but it was their only chance. He turned to Jeanne. "We need to buy Bernard time to disable the altar. Are you with me?" Jeanne nodded, the weight of her earlier hesitation lifting as purpose
filled her. Together they charged toward the Shadow and his followers, their movements a blend of strategy and desperation.
Jean used her knowledge of the amulet's energy to create bursts of light that disoriented their enemies, while Lupin's agility and cunning allowed him to outmaneuver the masked attackers. Bernard, meanwhile, worked feverishly at the altar. The hieroglyphs revealed a series of pressure points that, when activated in the correct sequence, would sever the statue's connection to the amulet. Sweat poured down his face as he carefully pressed each point, the mechanism groaning in protest. With every move, the Shadow, sensing the disruption, turned his attention to Bernard. With a furious roar, he raised his hand, and the amulet's energy surged toward him, forming a swirling vortex of light and shadow. The power lashed out, narrowly missing Bernard but leaving a jagged scar on the stone floor. Lupin saw the attack and knew they had to distract the Shadow. He called out, his voice laced with mockery. "Is that the best you've got? No wonder you need a dead pharaoh to do your dirty work." The taunt worked. The Shadow redirected his focus to Lupin, his fury blinding him to Bernard's progress. The two adversaries clashed in a brutal confrontation, their movements a dance of calculated strikes and near misses. As the battle raged, Jeanne noticed something peculiar about the altar. The amulet, though in the Shadow's possession, still seemed to respond to her presence. She hesitated, torn between fear and the possibility of regaining control over the artifact. "Jean!" Lupin shouted, his voice strained as he struggled against the Shadow. "Whatever you're thinking, do it now." With trembling hands, Jeanne reached out toward the altar. The amulet's energy flared, reacting violently to her touch. Pain shot through her body, but she pushed through it, focusing on the bond she had felt with the artifact. Slowly, the energy began to stabilize, its chaotic pulses aligning with her heartbeat. Bernard, seeing Jeanne's actions, adjusted his strategy. "Jeanne, if you can hold the energy steady, I can complete the
failsafe,"
he yelled, his voice barely audible over the deafening noise. The chamber's tension reached its breaking point as the Shadow realized what was happening. With a roar of desperation, he unleashed the full force of the amulet's power, aiming to stop Jean and Bernard. But Lupin, ever the opportunist, seized the moment. Using a hidden dagger, he struck at the Shadow's hand, causing him to falter. The amulet's energy wavered, giving Jeanne the opening she needed to fully connect with it. With one final push, Bernard activated the last pressure point. The altar groaned and shuddered as its mechanisms ground to a halt. The connection between the statue and the amulet was severed, and the chamber fell eerily silent. For a moment, it seemed as though they had succeeded, but the statue's glowing eyes dimmed only slightly, and the ground beneath them began to crack. The failsafe had disrupted the connection, but it had also triggered a self-destruct mechanism within the necropolis. Lupin, Jean, and Bernard exchanged a single, knowing glance. Their victory had come at a cost, and now they had to escape the collapsing tomb before it became their grave. Chapter 5. The curse! Unbound, the storm outside seemed to rage with an unnatural fury, its torrential downpour pounding against the ancient stone walls of the temple. Inside, a heavy tension filled the air, as though even the structure itself knew that the final chapter of this twisted tale was about to unfold. Arsène Lupin stood at the center of the ruined hall, the flickering light of the lightning illuminating his sharp features. He was drenched, his mind racing, and his heart pounding with the weight of what had led him here. Across the room, Ludovic Rainier emerged from the shadows. A sinister grin curled at the edges of his lips, a look of pure malice in his eyes. It was the moment of reckoning. Everything that had happened, the deception, the lies, the cursed artifacts, the lives lost, all of it had been leading to this final confrontation. "So," Arsène began, his voice steady but laced with bitterness. "You were behind it all." Ludovic chuckled darkly, the sound echoing off the crumbling walls. "Did you really think the curse was just about gold, Lupin? It was always about something much greater than that. Power, control, legacy. You never understood that." Arsène's gaze hardened. His mind flashed back to the moments of betrayal, the desperate chase across continents, and the realization that nothing was as it seemed. Every piece of the puzzle had been a carefully constructed lie. "You've been playing a game, but the truth is, you're just a man hiding behind illusions," Arsène retorted, his voice cold, cutting through the tension. Ludovic's eyes darkened.
Illusions? No, Lupin, it's not illusions, it's destiny. The Pharaoh's curse was always meant to return to this moment, to me. And now everything is mine to command. The storm raged louder, as if the heavens themselves were responding.
To Ludovic's arrogance. Lightning illuminated the broken statues that lined the temple, casting eerie shadows over the room. The place felt alive with the history of all those who had come before, each of them now forgotten, reduced to mere footnotes in Ludovic's dangerous game. But Arsène, despite the weight of everything, felt a surge of clarity. This was the moment where all of his choices, his actions, his morality, his resolve would be tested. He could feel the eyes of those who had helped him, and those he had betrayed, watching. The path forward was clear. He could fight. He could end this once
and for all. But the question was, at what cost?
Ludovic had always been the master manipulator, his mind games as sharp as his actions. He had lured Arsène into this confrontation, making him feel like a mere pawn in a far larger scheme. Every step, every move had been calculated to break him down. "You've always been clever, Lupin," Ludovic taunted. "But you never understood the true power of destiny. I've orchestrated everything. Your every move, every failure, every victory. It's all been part of the plan. You're nothing more than a tool in my hands." Arsène felt the sting of those words, the weight of every failure, every misstep. Yet in that moment, something shifted inside him. He refused to be the pawn. The storm outside seemed to pulse with his thoughts, each flash of lightning matching the heartbeat of his realization. Ludovic's taunting words were designed to fracture his spirit, to make him question everything he had done. But Arsène knew deep down that this was where it ended. He wasn't here to be manipulated any longer. The truth of his past mistakes didn't matter now. What mattered was that this nightmare ended. "You think you've won," Arsène said, his
voice now fierce. "But I'm not here to play by your rules anymore. I'm here to stop you." The moment stretched into infinity. Arsène could feel his heart thumping in his chest, each beat a reminder of the choice before him.
His gaze flicked to Ludovic's hand, where the cursed artifact, the final piece of this twisted puzzle, lay. Ludovic's smirk deepened. "You can't stop this, Lupin. It's already too late. The curse will continue. I will continue. And there's nothing you can do." The words hung in the air, thick with finality. It was true. The artifact was the key. And if Ludovic used it, the curse would spread, the web of power would tighten, and the world would never be the same. Arsène was faced with an impossible choice. He could end Ludovic's life here and now, sacrifice his own soul to the quest for vengeance. Or he could spare him, knowing that mercy might bring its own consequences. But deep down, Arsène knew that this wasn't about revenge. This was about something much bigger. It was about the future. With a deep breath, Arsène made his choice. The truth about Ludovic was devastating, but as the battle raged, the subplots, those involving the loyal allies, the love interests, and the betrayals, began to find their own resolution. Isabel, who had been trapped in the web of lies, had escaped the clutches of Ludovic's operatives. As the confrontation reached its peak, she arrived at the temple, hidden in the shadows. She was ready to help, ready to fight for the cause that Arsène had devoted his life to. But she wasn't just fighting for him. She was fighting for herself, for a future that wasn't defined by the manipulations of others. Henri, who had once betrayed Arsène, found himself caught between his past and his future. But in a final act of redemption, he chose to fight for the right side. He knew the cost of his betrayal, and he would make things right, even if it meant sacrificing everything. Elise, the woman who had once loved Arsène, found herself at a crossroads. She had always been torn between her love for him and her desire for a normal life. But now, with the truth laid bare, she made the painful decision to leave him behind, choosing a path free from the chaos he constantly brought into her life. Just when Arsène thought he had won, when the curse was nearly lifted, Ludovic revealed the final twist. It wasn't the artifact that had been the true power. It wasn't the Pharaoh's curse that had brought them here. Lupin, Ludovic whispered with a smile. You've been playing checkers, and I've been playing chess. The real enemy isn't me. It never was. A chill ran down Arsène's spine as the true horror of Ludovic's words sank in. The curse, the artifact, it had all been a distraction, a clever ruse to lead Arsène into a far greater conspiracy. The true puppet master, the one pulling all the strings, was someone far more dangerous than Ludovic. Someone who had been watching, from the shadows, unseen all along. Arsène's world tilted as he realized that his battle was far from over. The web of deceit stretched far beyond Ludovic's grasp. As Ludovic crumpled to the ground, defeated but not broken, the storm outside began to subside. But the damage had already been done. The artifact was destroyed, but a greater mystery loomed. Arsène's victory felt hollow, knowing that the true enemy remained at large, a figure, unseen, unknown, watched from a distance. Their presence hung in the air like an unspoken threat, a promise of more danger to come. The road ahead was uncertain. The storm had passed, but the real battle was only just beginning. As Arsène walked away from the temple's ruins, the weight of the future pressed down on him. His choices had led him here, but the question now was, what would he do with the truth he had uncovered? Thank you for tuning in to Café Stories. If you enjoyed the intrigue and suspense, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon to stay updated on more captivating adventures. Your support keeps the stories coming and the mysteries alive. Until next time, stay curious, stay sharp, and keep the mystery alive.